The quantum stabilizer hummed softly as Dr. Marcus Wright adjusted the final calculations on his holographic display. The basement laboratory at the Quantum Dynamics Institute was his sanctuary, where he spent countless hours working on his revolutionary theories about genetic enhancement through quantum manipulation. Little did he know that his research had caught the attention of observers far beyond Earth. A soft azure light filled the room, accompanied by a slight static charge that made the hair on his arms stand up. Before Marcus could react, the familiar confines of his lab dissolved around him, replaced by a vast chamber with sweeping crystalline architecture that defied Earth's engineering capabilities. "Welcome, Dr. Wright," a melodious voice echoed through the chamber. From an archway emerged a tall, elegant figure, clearly not human, but humanoid. Her skin had a subtle iridescent quality, like mother of pearl, and her eyes held the depth of ancient wisdom. "I am High Council Leader Thura of the Luminary Confederation." Marcus maintained his composure, though his mind raced with questions. His years of theoretical work on quantum physics had prepared him for the possibility of advanced civilizations, but nothing could truly prepare someone for such an encounter. "Your research into quantum genetic manipulation has brought you to our attention," Thura continued, gesturing to floating displays showing his work. "Our civilization faces a crisis that your unique insights might help solve." Two more figures entered, both carrying themselves with similar grace but distinctly younger than Thura. "My daughters, First Sentinel Naira and Second Sentinel Rhea," Thura introduced them. Where Thura projected serene wisdom, Naira exuded analytical intensity, while Rhea's expression held barely contained curiosity. "Our species evolved in a binary star system," Naira explained, bringing up a holographic display of their home world. "Recent stellar fluctuations have begun affecting our genetic stability. Your theories about quantum genetic shields might be the key to our survival." Marcus studied the data floating before him. "These patterns in your genetic degradation, they're similar to what I've observed in quantum particle decay. The principles might be adaptable, but..." He paused, looking at Thura. "Why bring me here? Surely your technology is far more advanced than Earth's." Rhea stepped forward, her eyes bright with intelligence. "Sometimes the most profound insights come from fresh perspectives, Dr. Wright. Your approach to quantum genetics is entirely different from our traditional methods. We believe combining our knowledge might lead to a solution." "And if I refuse?" Marcus asked, though his scientific curiosity was already fully engaged. "You are not a prisoner," Thura assured him. "We seek willing collaboration. However, consider this. Your work could save not only our species but potentially protect humanity from similar stellar events in the future." Marcus moved closer to the holographic displays, his mind already racing with possibilities. The quantum patterns in their genetic structure were fascinating, unlike anything he'd seen before. "These readings, they're not just about genetic stability, are they? There's something else you haven't told me." A look passed between the three aliens. "You are perceptive," Thura acknowledged. "The situation is more complex than I've explained. Our people share a quantum-level consciousness, a collective awareness that's beginning to fragment as our genetic structure destabilizes. We're not just fighting for physical survival, but for the very essence of our civilization." Marcus felt the weight of the moment. Here was an opportunity to not only advance his research beyond his wildest dreams but to preserve an entire civilization's unique consciousness. Yet he sensed there were still secrets being kept, mysteries yet to be revealed. "I'll help," he said finally, "but I need full access to your data and complete honesty about what we're dealing with. No more hidden variables in this equation." Thura smiled, an expression surprisingly human-like. "Agreed. Though I warn you, Dr. Wright, understanding our complete situation may challenge everything you think you know about consciousness, quantum physics, and the very nature of existence itself." As Marcus began reviewing the complex data streams, he couldn't shake the feeling that this was more than a scientific mission. The way Naira and Rhea studied him, the subtle tensions in their interactions, suggested layers of complexity in luminary society he was only beginning to glimpse. Whatever he had been brought here to solve, he suspected it would test not just his scientific knowledge, but his understanding of consciousness, culture, and perhaps even human nature itself. Days aboard the luminary vessel blended into weeks as Marcus immersed himself in their vast scientific archives. The ship's laboratory made his Earth facility look primitive by comparison, yet he found himself making connections their scientists had overlooked. Perhaps it was his outsider's perspective or his unconventional approach to quantum mechanics that allowed him to see patterns others had missed. Naira had become his constant companion in the lab, her analytical mind complementing his theoretical approach. "Your species thinks differently," she observed one evening as they reviewed genetic simulations. "You make intuitive leaps that our logical processes would never consider." "Different doesn't mean better," Marcus replied, manipulating a holographic strand of their quantum-modified DNA. "Your people's collective consciousness gives you advantages we can barely comprehend." "Speaking of which..." He turned to face her directly. "You still haven't explained how that works." Naira's iridescent skin shifted colors slightly. What Marcus had learned was their equivalent of thoughtful consideration. "Perhaps it's time for a demonstration." She held out her hand. "Do you trust me?" Marcus hesitated only briefly before taking it. Immediately, his consciousness expanded. It was like suddenly gaining new senses he never knew existed. He could feel the pulse of the ship around them, the subtle quantum vibrations that connected every luminary aboard. More intimately, he felt Naira's presence, not just physically, but as a complex pattern of thoughts, emotions, and memories. "This is how we exist," her voice echoed both in his ears and mind. "Every luminary is connected through quantum entanglement at the cellular level. Or at least, we were." She withdrew her hand, and Marcus felt the connection snap shut, leaving him feeling strangely isolated. "The stellar radiation," he said slowly, new understanding dawning. "It's not just degrading your DNA, it's breaking down the quantum coherence that enables your shared consciousness." "Yes." Ria's voice came from the laboratory entrance. She moved to join them, her usual curiosity tempered by concern. "We're not just losing our genetic stability, we're losing ourselves. Each generation is born less connected, more isolated." Marcus studied the sisters, seeing their relationship in a new light. "That's why you work so closely together. You're trying to maintain the connection." "The royal lineage maintains the strongest quantum coherence," Naira confirmed. "It's why our mother leads the High Council. She anchors our people's remaining connections." A soft chime interrupted them as new data scrolled across the holographic displays. Marcus frowned at the readings. "These patterns, they're not random degradation. It's almost like..." "Like what?" Ria leaned forward, her interest piqued. "Like someone designed them." Marcus expanded the display, highlighting specific sequences. "See these markers? They're too precise to be natural stellar radiation damage. This looks more like a programmed response." The sisters exchanged alarmed glances. "That's impossible," Naira stated, but her tone held uncertainty. "The changes began with the stellar fluctuations." "Did they?" Marcus pulled up historical data. "Or did someone use the stellar event as cover for something else? Look at these base sequences. They're not breaking down, they're being rewritten." Before either sister could respond, the laboratory door slid open. Thura entered, her usual serene expression replaced by visible concern. "Dr. Wright is correct," she announced. "We've detected unauthorized quantum transmissions from within the ship. Someone is actively interfering with our genetic structure." "A traitor?" Ria's voice held disbelief. "Or an infiltrator," Naira suggested, her training as First Sentinel evident in her rapid tactical assessment. "Neither." Thura's expression grew grave. The transmissions bear signatures of the Void Collective, a splinter group that abandoned our society centuries ago, believing isolation would lead to stronger individual consciousness. Marcus looked between the three women, sensing layers of history and conflict he was only beginning to understand. They're trying to force your evolution, he realized. Using the stellar radiation as cover to break down your collective consciousness. Which means solving the genetic degradation is only part of the solution, Naira concluded. We need to stop these transmissions without alerting the Void Collective that we've discovered them. And we need to do it quickly, Rhea added, checking new data streams. The degradation is accelerating. We have weeks at most before the damage becomes irreversible. Marcus turned back to his quantum calculations with renewed purpose. He wasn't just fighting to save a species anymore, he was racing to preserve a unique form of consciousness, a way of existence humans had only dreamed of. And somewhere aboard this vast ship, hidden enemies were working to destroy it all. We'll need to be careful, Thera warned. The Void Collective may have other agents aboard. Trust no one outside this room. She paused, looking at Marcus. Can we count on your continued help, Dr. Wright? The risk to you has just increased significantly. Marcus thought of the incredible knowledge he'd gained, the mysteries yet to be solved, and the unique beauty of the luminary consciousness he'd briefly experienced. More than that, he thought of what would be lost if the Void Collective succeeded. I'm not going anywhere, he assured them. But we're going to need a plan, one that turns their own quantum manipulation against them. Working under the threat of Void Collective infiltrators made every moment aboard the ship tense. Marcus had converted a portion of his quarters into a secure workspace, using quantum interference patterns to mask their research from detection. Naira and Rhea took turns standing guard while sharing their knowledge of luminary history and science. The Void Collective wasn't always our enemy, Rhea explained one evening, while Marcus fine-tuned his quantum detection algorithms. They began as a philosophical movement, believing that our shared consciousness limited individual potential. Their leader, Vanoth, was once our father's closest advisor, Naira added, her voice tight with old pain. He led the exodus to the outer colonies, taking nearly a third of our population with him. Marcus looked up from his work, sensing the weight of unspoken history. Your father, what happened to him? The sisters shared a look before Naira spoke. He disappeared during the final confrontation with Vanoth. Mother never fully recovered from the broken quantum bond. It's why she's so determined to preserve our collective consciousness. And why the Void Collective's actions now are essentially genocide, Marcus concluded. They're not just changing your biology, they're erasing everything that makes your civilization unique. A subtle vibration ran through the ship, causing the holographic displays to flicker. Rhea moved to a control panel, her expression concerned. That's the third power fluctuation this cycle. They're getting bolder. Marcus pulled up his latest scan results. These energy signatures, they're similar to the quantum patterns in your genetic degradation. The Void Collective isn't just transmitting signals, they're using the ship's own power grid to amplify their effect. Which means the saboteur has high-level access, Naira concluded grimly. Someone on the council itself must be compromised. The door chimed, and Thera entered, looking more troubled than Marcus had ever seen her. Worse than that, she said, having caught Naira's last words. We've detected quantum resonance patterns matching Vanatha's unique signature. He's alive, and he's aboard this ship. The revelation hit like a physical force. Rhea steadied herself against a console while Naira's hand instinctively went to the energy weapon at her hip. Marcus, however, was focused on something else in the data streams. These patterns, he said slowly, they're not just breaking down your collective consciousness. They're trying to establish a new one. He expanded the display, showing complex quantum interference waves. Look at the harmonic frequencies. They're creating a different kind of network. Thera moved closer, her eyes widening. A hive mind, she whispered. Vanoth isn't trying to free our people from collective consciousness, he's trying to enslave them to his own. The stellar radiation was never the real threat, Naira realized. It was just interference to mask their true purpose. They're using our own defensive responses against us. Marcus nodded grimly. Your bodies are naturally trying to maintain quantum coherence. The Void Collective is hijacking that instinct, redirecting it to their new network. That's why the younger generations are less connected, they're being prepared for a different kind of link. How long? Thura's voice was steady, but Marcus could sense her fear. He checked the degradation rates. At the current progression? 3 days, maybe 4, before the changes become irreversible. Once that happens, your people will naturally begin syncing with the new quantum field. Then we have no choice, Rhea said, pulling up ship schematics. We need to confront Vanoth directly. End this at the source. It's not that simple, Naira countered. We don't know who on the council is working with him. One wrong move could alert them and accelerate their timeline. Marcus studied the quantum wave patterns, an idea forming. Maybe we don't need to confront them, he said slowly. What if we could use their own quantum network against them? Create a feedback loop that would expose everyone connected to their system? Thura's eyes lit with understanding. Like a quantum virus, she said. But we'd need access to their transmission source. Which is somewhere in the council chambers, Naira added. The most heavily guarded and monitored section of the ship. Marcus looked between the 3 women, seeing the same determination in their faces that he felt. Then we'll need a diversion, he said. Something big enough to draw attention but not so obvious that it reveals our hand. He smiled slightly. Fortunately, I have an idea that involves some very unorthodox applications of quantum mechanics. As they began planning their counterstrike, Marcus realized how much had changed. He'd come aboard as an outsider, a scientific curiosity. Now he was deeply invested in saving not just the luminaries' genetic future, but their very way of life. Looking at Naira's focused expression and Rhea's determined energy, he knew he wouldn't have it any other way. What none of them noticed was the subtle distortion in the corner of the room, a quantum fluctuation that shouldn't have been possible through Marcus's interference patterns. They weren't the only ones making plans. The council chamber's antechamber hummed with nervous energy as Marcus made final adjustments to his quantum scanner, disguised as a standard data tablet. Naira stood beside him, outwardly calm but radiating tension. They had one chance to expose Vanoth and his conspirators without alerting them to the detection. Remember, Marcus whispered, the quantum feedback loop will only work for about 3 minutes before their systems adapt. We have to identify everyone connected to their network in that time. Naira nodded slightly. Rhea's in position in the security hub. Mother will keep the council occupied with the emergency session. Are you ready? Marcus checked the device one last time. The past 24 hours had been a blur of preparation, building their countermeasures while maintaining the pretense of normal research. Ready as I'll ever be to crash a gathering of ancient alien politicians. The chamber doors swept open, revealing the circular council hall. Dozens of luminary representatives sat in tiered seats, their iridescent skin creating a subtle light show as they shifted and moved. Thura stood at the center, her presence commanding attention as she addressed the assembly about recent power fluctuations. Marcus and Naira took their positions near the back, seemingly there to provide technical expertise. His modified scanner began its work, sending out precisely calibrated quantum pulses that would interact with Vanoth's hidden network. Energy grid stability has decreased by 17%, Thura was saying. We need to consider temporary restoration protocols. A sudden shift in the room's lighting caused several council members to look up in alarm. Right on schedule, Rhea's carefully orchestrated power fluctuations were beginning. The perfect cover for any unusual readings from Marcus's device. Multiple systems are showing strain, one of the council members announced, rising from his seat. "We should adjourn until—" "No." The voice came from the upper tier, carrying authority that seemed to ripple through the air. Marcus felt Naira tense beside him as an elegant, austere figure stood. Even without an introduction, he knew this had to be Vanoth. The former advisor carried himself with regal confidence, his silver white hair and sharp features marking him as distinctly different from the other luminaries. "These fluctuations prove what I've been warning about," Vanoth continued. "Our collective consciousness is becoming unstable. We must act now to preserve our civilization, even if it means evolutionary changes." Marcus's scanner beeped softly, the first confirmations of quantum network connections were appearing. He carefully began mapping them, watching as lines of invisible influence spread between council members. Nearly a third of them were already compromised, linked to Vanatha's alternate network. Thara's eyes met Marcus's briefly, accepting his subtle nod. "Perhaps," she said carefully, "we should discuss these evolutionary changes in more detail, Vanoth. After all these years, you've never fully explained your vision." Vanoth smiled, the expression not reaching his eyes. "My vision? Simply the next step in our development. A stronger, more directed form of consciousness. One with purpose." "You mean control," Naira spoke up, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber. "A hive mind with you at the center." The temperature in the room seemed to drop as Vanatha's gaze fixed on her. "Ah, First Sentinel. Still playing at being your mother's protector? You never did understand the bigger picture." Marcus's scanner was nearly finished. The quantum feedback loop was revealing the full extent of Vanatha's influence, and it was worse than they'd feared. Almost half the council was already partially integrated into his network. "I understand perfectly," Naira replied, her voice steel. "You're not trying to save our people. You're trying to enslave them." Murmurs ran through the assembly as Marcus transmitted the scan results to Rhea. The evidence was irrefutable, quantum signatures showing exactly who was compromised and to what degree. Vanatha's composure slipped slightly. "You dare accuse me? I who have sacrificed everything for our survival." His voice took on a resonant quality that made Marcus's head spin. "I have seen what weakness our current form of consciousness brings. We need direction, unity, purpose. We need freedom," Thara countered. "The freedom to connect, to grow, to evolve naturally. Not to be forced into your twisted version of unity." The lights flickered again, more violently this time. Marcus felt a surge of energy through his scanner. Vanoth was trying to accelerate his plan, pushing his quantum network to full power. "It's done," he announced quietly to Naira. "Rhea has the data. All the proof we need." But Vanoth was smiling again, that cold, confident smile that suggested he still held cards they hadn't seen. "Proof," he said, somehow having heard Marcus's whisper. "You think evidence matters now? My network has already taken root. Even as we speak, the quantum changes are becoming permanent. Soon, every luminary will be part of my new collective, whether they choose to be or not." The chamber erupted in chaos as council members began taking sides, some moving to support Vanoth while others backed away in horror. Marcus felt a strange pressure building in his head. Vanoth was trying to force his way into their minds directly. "Now, Rhea," Naira commanded into her communicator. "Execute the protocol." The chamber plunged into darkness, emergency lights casting everything in a deep blue glow. But something was wrong. Marcus's scanner was showing energy readings that shouldn't have been possible. "Did you really think I wouldn't have contingencies?" Vanatha's voice seemed to come from everywhere at once. "That I wouldn't plan for interference? Let me show you what real power looks like." The darkness itself seemed to come alive with quantum energy, and Marcus realized with growing dread that their carefully laid plan had just become infinitely more complicated. Quantum energy crackled through the council chamber as Vanatha's true power manifested. The compromised council members moved in perfect synchronization, their eyes glowing with an unnatural inner light. Marcus's scanner was overwhelmed by the readings, its display showing impossible levels of quantum coherence. Beautiful, isn't it? Vanatha's voice resonated with newfound power. This is what we could have been all along, truly unified, truly perfect. Thera stood her ground, her own quantum presence expanding to shield the uncompromised council members. This isn't unity, Vanath. It's domination. Marcus's mind raced, analyzing the quantum patterns surrounding them. Something about them seemed familiar. The stellar radiation, he whispered to Naira. He didn't just use it as cover, he somehow harnessed it, integrated it into his network. Correct, Dr. Wright. Vanath descended from his tier, each step releasing waves of quantum energy. Decades of exposure in the outer colonies taught us how to bend it to our will. And now, that power will reshape our entire civilization. But Marcus wasn't listening anymore. His attention was fixed on his scanner's readings. The patterns weren't just familiar, they were identical to something he'd seen in his earliest research on Earth. Naira, he said urgently, I need to connect to your quantum field. Now. She grabbed his hand without hesitation, and Marcus felt his consciousness expand into the luminary quantum network. Through their connection, he rapidly shared his realization. Naira's eyes widened with understanding. Rhea, she called through their secure channel, initiate Protocol Omega. Full power to the quantum core. That's suicide, Rhea protested. The core isn't designed to handle that much energy. Trust me, Marcus projected through Naira's quantum link. Vanath made one crucial mistake. He based his entire network on a fundamental quantum principle, but he got it wrong. Vanath laughed, the sound distorting reality around them. Wrong? I have mastered powers you cannot begin to comprehend. Your primitive understanding of quantum mechanics is nothing compared to. Your network relies on forced quantum entanglement, Marcus interrupted, stepping forward. You're trying to override natural quantum bonds with artificial ones. But there's a principle I discovered on Earth, the uncertainty cascade effect. The more you try to force quantum particles into alignment, the more chaotic they become. Thera's expression shifted as she grasped his meaning. The quantum core will create a resonance wave that turns his own network against itself, Marcus confirmed. Every attempt to maintain control will only accelerate the breakdown. Vanatha's confidence wavered for the first time. Impossible. My calculations are perfect. Now, Rhea. Naira commanded. The ship's quantum core surged to life, flooding the chamber with pure quantum energy. Marcus felt it through his connection with Naira, a tsunami of possibility and probability, crashing against Vanatha's rigid quantum structures. The effect was instantaneous. The artificial network began to fracture as the uncertainty cascade took hold. Compromised council members stumbled, their forced synchronization breaking down. Vanatha's power, built on fundamental misunderstanding, started to turn inward. No, he raged, trying to force his will through the quantum field. But each attempt only accelerated the cascade. The more he struggled for control, the faster his network collapsed. Marcus held tight to Naira's hand, channeling his understanding of quantum mechanics through their connection. Together with Thera, they created a stable quantum framework, not forcing, but inviting. A pattern that honored both individual consciousness and collective harmony. In the end, Vanatha's grand design collapsed not with an explosion, but with a quantum whisper. The forced bonds dissolved, leaving the natural luminary consciousness intact. Council members awakened from their enthrallment, dazed but free. It's over, Thera declared, moving to where Vanath had fallen to his knees. Your experiment in evolution has failed. But Marcus wasn't so sure. Not failed, he said thoughtfully. Transformed. He turned to the assembled council. What we've learned here, about quantum consciousness, about the balance between unity and individuality, it opens up new possibilities. Not for control, but for growth. Naira squeezed his hand, sharing his vision through their quantum link. A way to strengthen our natural bonds while preserving individual freedom. To evolve without losing ourselves. Thera nodded slowly. Perhaps this crisis has taught us something valuable after all. The path forward isn't through force or fear, but through understanding and choice. In the days that followed, as the luminary civilization began to heal, Marcus worked with Naira and Rhea to develop a new quantum framework. One that would protect their people from stellar radiation while allowing their consciousness to evolve naturally. Vanatha's attempt at forced evolution had failed, but it had sparked genuine progress. "Will you stay?" Naira asked him one evening, as they watched the quantum core pulse with healthy energy. "There's still so much we could learn from each other." Marcus smiled, feeling the subtle quantum connection they now shared, not forced, not artificial, but a natural bridge between their species. "I think," he said, "this is just the beginning of a much longer story." And in the vast quantum field that connected the luminary people, a new pattern began to emerge, one that spoke not of domination or control, but of infinite possibility and shared discovery. A true evolution, born not of force, but of understanding, trust, and the courage to grow together.